Anger, grief and protest. Odisha is reeling from the shocking death of a 20-year-old B.Ed student who set herself ablaze on campus after accusing a professor of sexual harassment. In a startling revelation, we now know that not only the student herself, but also the student wing of the BJP, ABVP, wrote letters to form a committee for investigation and to take action against the accused in the case. But all their concerns were not addressed. Meanwhile, the victim's father has alleged that many were responsible for his daughter's death and that it was a murder. BJD has called for a Balasore district bandh today to be observed from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And these visuals on your screens right now are from the massive protest that erupted in Bhubaneswar on a day when Balasore district bandh was called. Outrage spills out on the streets, protesters clash with the cops, and as the protest turned violent, several protesters were also detained. The bandh has been observed in the entire district of Balasore to demand justice for the victim who died of self-immolation after her pleas against harassment by two of her teachers went unheard. Shops, markets, government offices and private institutions have remained closed since morning, and the party has informed that emergency services, although, will not be disrupted during this bandh. Biju Janata Dal has staged a protest at Lok Seva Bhavan in the capital Bhubaneswar with the same demand. And those visuals are from that BJD protest that was carried out today in Bhubaneswar. And what we're given to understand is that BJD has decided to call for this bandh and hold protest demanding justice for the Balasore student who died after self-immolation. The student suicide has sparked outrage across the state with candlelight protest that was also carried out yesterday, and a probe has been ordered by the UGC. Congress leaders had staged a candlelight protest last evening demanding action and accountability from the ruling government. But today, right now, as we speak, BJD has taken to streets demanding justice. Of course, they have been caught by surprise. As far as the police bandobast is concerned, there have been heavy security deployment, but they have not been able to contain the protest. The outrage spills on the street as BJD, the primary opposition in Odisha, demands justice, holding the state responsible for not addressing the grievances of the student who ended her life. Grievances that were put out in a form of a letter by the victim herself to the principal. The grievances of sexual harassment that the victim was subjected to at the hands of the assistant professor. It was detailed out in a letter by the ABVP and was again addressed to the principal. But all the grievances and all the cries of help fell on deaf ears. And today, as we speak, these protests are being carried out. Of course, the police is trying to detain the protesters to contain the ongoing demonstration by the BJD party workers. But it appears that people are not going to rest until justice is done. Interesting to mention over here is that the father of the victim alleges that his daughter was compelled to take her life and terms it as a case of murder and not suicide. The same sentiment was echoed by the victim's brother, who spoke exclusively with News9 a short while ago, stating that his sister did not want to end her life had it not been for the principal of the university who forced her to take her life, and that this case should be treated as a murder. Karthikesh Sharma, the Deputy Managing Editor of News9, is joining me right now on the phone line. Karthikesh, these visuals that we are playing on our screens right now are protests that are being carried out with protesters taking to streets, outrage spilling out on the streets, demanding justice. The BJD, the primary opposition party, has decided to corner the government in Odisha, demanding answers.
You see, I think it's a case of mismanagement by the BJP government in Odisha. See, we have to put this in a perspective. This is not a case of law and order, but this is a case of great administrative lapse. This is a case of great inefficiency in the system where the voice of a woman was not heard. So the victim was saying that she was being sexually harassed. Victim wanted justice. Now the brother has come out. Brother is saying that, despite the family making so much of, noise about what the ordeal the sister went through, there was no official addressal mechanism available to them. And that is why it has resulted in so much of political outrage. Political parties are out there. BJD and the Congress have taken on the streets. So I think it's a political headache for the BJP government. This for the first time BJP has been able to form government in Odisha. And Odisha has always been an outlier state where, the governments have shifted between BJD and the Congress party. For the first time, the government shifted to BJP, the third party. So obviously, there is a political momentum on this chain of events, and I think BJP finds itself in a hot spot today. But definitely, I would say that it's a case of great mishandling. This case could have been even handled in a better way after the emulation took place. They could immediately have done a press conference. There could have been an appeal. The CM and other people could have more proactively engaged with the civil society member, media. But then nonetheless, you see, the story is not about that, the engagement post-event. The story is actually now about the fact that what happened when there was a grievance. What happened when the woman was saying that, she was actually undergoing an ordeal. What happened when the woman was saying that, she's being harassed. What happened when the woman's brother and the father are openly saying that, they were not being heard properly. Imagine a person emulating oneself out of frustration. And let me tell you, this is not first time that has happened. The cases of self-emulation in this country has sparked widespread outrage. Rajiv Goswami emulation during Mandal Commission sparked so much of outrage. It was a single case of emulation in Delhi, and it caused so much of an outrage that there was a tremendous pressure on the VP Singh's government. The emulation in India has actually led to creation of states. Emulation in India for a cause has led to creation of states on linguistic lines. So the point I'm trying to make is that the emulation is a very powerful act. So what has happened is that out of ordeal, stress, anxiety, the pressure which the girl was undergoing, it's horrific. No one should undergo that what she underwent. But it has actually outraged the, I would say, entire society. It is like shaking the moral equilibrium, and that is why you find political parties filling that vacuum. So I think it's a case of administrative neglect and a political, lack of political engagement. This is not a widespread Odisha protest, but the fact is the political parties have been able to create a strong presence on this issue. Goes on to say that the government itself feels on this particular issue in a tight corner. I'm not going to compare it with Sandesh Khali. I'm not going to compare it with other cases of other states. But in this case, in this particular case, in context of Odisha, BJP is on back foot, Samya. That's the bottom line. They could have done things differently.
Absolutely, Karthikeya. And to think of it, that there is a BJP government in Odisha. We are talking about system failure. We are talking about administrative failure. And the ABVP also wrote to the principal, and yet the grievances went unheard. BJP did not listen to their own student wing writing a letter demanding justice and action for this particular victim. Perhaps she could have been saved if they acted in time.
Samya, that is one aspect of the story, That is one aspect of the story on which the ruling dispensation needs to think. Other aspect of the story is that when a party comes to power, there are formal mechanisms that are available. The larger issue is that why those formal mechanisms were not activated or did not become active. That is one thing. The second thing is, like for example, even in any private enterprise, suppose there is a case of sexual harassment, what happens? You have a Vishakha guidelines mandated by the Supreme Court of India. It gets kicked in. Vishakha guidelines are not nominal guidelines. Vishakha guidelines fill the grey area between what happens in office and what eventually goes on to become an FIR. So first of all, this would have come under Vishakha guidelines immediately, even before the FIR would have been formed. Second thing is that the addressal mechanism should have kicked into action. In such cases, it's like a cold play. In the sense, someone comes to you with a complaint, You activate the complaint, certain actions are taken, the people against whom the charges are, they're taken off the duty for some time. It's like you cold stationing them, and then you start the business. I would say that in this case, the larger problem is of mishandling. And the mishandling of victim's complaint, and subsequently no one spoke to her. You see, the first thing which any administration has to do, because everyone does not run to the police because it's happening in the administrative space, is to hear out the victim. If you look at what is happening is, no one heard the victim.
Absolutely. Her cries for help fell on deaf ears. She kept running from pillar to post seeking justice, and she got no audience to ensure that justice is going to be done, and she takes the extreme step, and today she's not amongst us. Thank you, Karthiki Sharma, for taking the time and joining us over here. I'm also joined by Advita Kala, who's a woman activist. Thank you, Ms. Kala, for taking the time and speaking to us here at News9. You are looking at these visuals on your screens right now, which goes on to show the anger amongst the people who have seen this student battle for life after self-immolation. She was compelled to take this extreme step because her grievances went unheard. Isn't this a policy failure on the part of the government to ensure that there are grievance redressal system and mechanism in place at campuses?
Absolutely. And it's a wake-up call that has come at a grave price. The fact that this young woman at the start of her life, I mean, we hope that the India of today is going to be kinder to women. And so a young woman like this giving up her life in this way is just such a sad, sad testament on the state that exists. Even after all these years, after all these fights, all these debates, all these shows that the media does that we speak about, we're still here.
Absolutely, Ms. Kala. But do you feel that even after the self-immolation that took place, the manner in which the Odisha government conducted itself, that did not really augur well with the family members and the student community? If they would have acted in time, made the arrest, perhaps hold a press conference like our deputy managing editor Karthiki Sharma was also maintaining, that they should have addressed the concern. They should have addressed the entire incident rather than running away from it.
Absolutely. I mean, they should have addressed this when the complaint came in. You know, so it's just a systemic failure at every level. This poor child was trying to raise her voice. She was doing the right thing, but instead she found herself so alone and so desperate that she had to give the ultimate sacrifice. If that doesn't infuriate us, then I don't know what will. So anything the government does now is anyway too late. And you can't this tendency of just putting a price on a life and then offering money and thinking that that's going to solve everything actually is more infuriating.
Absolutely, Ms. Kala. Thank you for taking the time and joining us over here and sharing your views on the story that we here at News9 are keeping a close track of. And I'm also joined by Sofia Firdaus, who's an MLA from the Congress party in Odisha. Ms. Firdaus, thank you for taking the time and joining us over here. Good afternoon. You are, of course, over there on ground. You are looking at things from a different perspective because you are one amongst those many women who are outraged by Balasore students' death. Of course, today BJD is protesting. The Congress party held a candlelight march yesterday. But do you feel that there is a larger concern, a larger cause of women's safety, safety of girl students at campuses that need to be addressed over here than getting lost in these tokenism of candlelight and protests?
This is the reality of Odisha. This girl had to go through this drastic step of self-immolation only to be able to gather attention of everybody in Odisha and outside Odisha. This is the reality that we are seeing. We are questioning the government of the last 1 year because law and order situation has deteriorated so much in the last 13 months beyond expectation. In the month of February, on relying at the answers that have been given by the Chief Minister on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, where he has clearly stated that yes, rape and crime against women has gone up and the disposal cases in the last 1 year was only 1%, which was shocking. And in the assembly, the Congress party had raised the demand to form a house committee. But you must have heard that all the 14 MLAs were suspended and we were thrown out of the house. In the history of Odisha, never ever this thing had happened. You look at the attitude of the government. Had they been serious since that time, then today this girl who is an ABVP member, she reached out and she wrote a letter on the letterhead of the ABVP. She reached out to her MP.
Because that is my next question to you, that if the BJP government is not paying heed to the ABVP's own letter, the grievances that is being mentioned in the ABVP's letter, then what hope would anybody else have?
This is so shocking. This girl had to self-immolate just to prove and just to bring this to the limelight that this is the state of women in Odisha. Women are not at all safe in Odisha. She relied on her government and she went and approached everybody. She tweeted as well, despite knocking every door. And you will see she's a fighter. She's a trainer as well, self-defense trainer as well. She has won many medals and she was a very, very brave girl. So the girl had to take such a drastic step to expose the failed system, the failed state of affairs in Odisha. And the Chief Minister is completely answerable for this. He is responsible for this, for the deteriorating law and order situation.